first up is the approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion. Motion and support. Any changes, additions, or corrections? Hearing that, none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public comments. Brad Flory, do you have anything to say? Okay. He says no, and there's nobody else here. Public, looks like. Moves us to the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Looking for approval, and are there any corrections? Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. We can move to the Act 51 report. If the preference is to wait for Chris, we can. I took a look through mine last night, 33 pages. I didn't break out my calculator, but everything looked pretty thorough and in order to me. And it's something, I did not read every single word, Commissioner Duckham, but I did look at it pretty closely. No calculator in my hand. And Mike can probably answer any questions if he's, yes, listening. But remember, this goes to the full board, assuming that we decide to pass it on. So if the preference is to wait for Christopher to get here, who is returning from Vegas and should be here, otherwise we can entertain a motion to pass it on. And if anybody has any questions, Mike can probably answer them. Look at that. He was probably standing in the hallway listening.
Yeah, wait, he's just going, shoot.
Chris? Which could be considered page 33, yeah. Chris, we're on the Act 51 report, and we were just about ready to entertain a motion to send it on. But if you have any comments on it or highlights, feel free.
Sure. Believe it or not, the page that really matters is 7 of 32. It's the statement of changes in fund balances. There's lots of other ancillary information, but really the first pages up to that page are what matters. We have our balance sheet in there, statement of revenues and expenditures, but the change in fund balances is really the critical key. You see we have a very healthy $21 million ending fund balance, which does include some of the bond proceeds. But after all the bonds are spent, we'd love to settle into about between $8 and $10 million for a healthy fund balance for a county road agency our size. And you see clearly something healthy that we do is we zero out the primary road fund and the local road fund, and we put all the money that we can into the what is called by tradition and by statute the County Road Commission Fund, for lack of a better term. That's what the accountants use. So column C is where you want all your money, because basically it's spend it in any way you see fit. So you can move that money back into primary or local. So we're very strategic in how we set this up. I'd like to point out too that we've transferred quite a bit into the local road fund. You see $6.3 million invested there, mostly as local match on projects. So the other thing to point out that isn't really clear in the Act 51 report is we finished the end of the year with about a $500,000 surplus. So that's, I think, 5 straight years that we've had $1 million or so, and this would be a $500,000 and in the black from what we predicted. So we're real happy about that.
Chris, I found that on page 1 of the 2-page document that came with that, 451, 473 under budget, looks like.
Page 1.
On the 2-page document that accompanies it, yep. Chris, the only question for me, I just happened to think of it now, I regularly ask Mike the status of our insurance lawsuit against the Road Commission. We're still waiting to hear on that, but is that accounted for anywhere in these figures or not?
No, we can't count on that revenue, so it is hanging out there. We're hopeful, of course. Is that still in the appeals process? Yeah. So that'd be welcome money, of course, but no, it's not accounted
Undoubtedly.
for.
Undoubtedly. Commissioners, any questions of Chris? And if not, a motion's in order to send this to the full board. Motion and support. Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, what do you attribute the budget revenue to? Is it you're patenting it, or we
surplus?
or something happened? Yeah,
The surplus?
every year.
It's just awesome management, right? All the way up to your level,
Petition
Mike.
for that. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, Mike, you know how much we strategize over our budget and try to make smart decisions, and so we do try to be, we never know what Mother Nature's going to do. So I know you use the word pad, but I call it contingency funds. We never know how winter's going to shake out. We don't know if we're going to get hit with floods or windstorms, so we do try to budget accordingly. I'd hate to come before you with a $500,000 shortfall or more. We could take it out of fund balance, of course, but I'd rather be, in this pattern. So it is very routine strategic management of the funds. I review it bi-weekly with our finance person, Julie Anderson, and we work with Cecilia on our cash flow and so forth.
And I thought you were going to say it was an innovative approach to something that saved us money and was more productive.
We are planting the money trees out there on the roadsides, but it's an invasive species, so some people are cutting it down and taking the money.
And Chris, I'm glad to hear you strategize over the budget, because I agonize over it, so.
Oh. Well, we agonize sometimes when we haven't strategized. I guess I'd put it that way.
Okay.
But, yeah, we are in challenging times. We used to be in challenging times because of shortage of revenues, of course, and cuts. Now we're in challenging times the other direction, how to spend it wisely and get it into the roads as quickly as possible. So I am aware of some road agencies that are not getting it into the roads. They're actually putting it in the bank, which has its own problems and criticisms, of course.
Commissioner Bear.
Yeah. Mr. Bolt, page 2, general operating fund investments, a little over $17 million. Where are those investments held?
The county treasurer takes care of that for us. We put it into the pooled cash of the county, so I can't answer that specifically, but I know Cecilia or the treasurer can. We trust them wholeheartedly.
All right, so it's right in with the county.
Correct. It's our money, but it goes in with the county's cash.
Thank you.
Yes.
You've got one? Okay.
To answer Mr. Bear's question for everyone, it was decided back in the 90s that the county would pool all of its resources because it could buy more money market at a better discounted rate. And if you notice, the treasurer presents a quarterly investment strategy. And in that you see monies from Lifeways as well as other general agencies within the county, and she divides that up, and the interest that is garnered after everyone receives their interest back is what we use to manage our capital fund with. So that's how that revenue is used. We take the money and invest it on a monthly or even weekly basis, trap all of that interest, divide it back out to the different agencies, and then the surplus is then kept, and it's how we fund our capital improvement budget here at the county. So that way it doesn't impact the general fund budget. Just so commissioners understand the direction of how our financial group has set up our system.
If I could add something, I'd like to.
Go ahead,
to that. There will be times potentially in the future, may have been in the past, where we need to, for cash flow reasons, either the county's cash flow or ours, we need to use from that pool. So that can happen. Our low time comes right about here in the next month or two. In the latter part of the construction season, we have huge bills, $1 million invoices rolling in every 2 weeks. So a lot of times, our MTF revenues are a steady paycheck each month, so it takes sometimes September, October, November to kind of build back up and replenish that. But that can happen. But that is one huge benefit to pooling with the county's cash.
Commissioner Duckham. Okay. Well, I think we're done on this issue. So we have a motion on the floor and a support. And if there's no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Chris, Arrive Junction Road contract.
Yes, for this road, as with some of the other contracts you have in front of you, we're trying to save the savable roads in our county, try to buy some extra life out of them. So we're taking a unique approach this year. We are allowed by MDOT policy to do what's called force account. And force account is a technical term that we use, meaning that we can use our in-house forces to do the chip seal work here and get reimbursed from the grant for the $93,000. We actually would get the $75,000 provided, and then our local match would just be our own labor and trucks and so forth. So some of these projects you'll see are of that force account nature, and that includes Rives Junction, and there's an exhibit attached to show the extent of the work. So this has been approved by MDOT, and they've presented the contract to us, and we're pleased. There is a cap. You can only do up to $400,000 for the year and up to 5 projects. So there used to be a day where you could do as much as you could handle, but that changed a few years ago. So we're trying to take advantage of this opportunity. One big reason is that we are very good with chip seal. We have high quality work, and we're at much lower prices than we can get through bids. And we have scanned bid prices to make sure of that.
Chris, that section of Rives Junction Road, there's a significant number of, I think what you call them are skip patching or skip paving. This will not do those sections, I would assume, or does it go over them?
Actually, we put the chips on the entire stretch of road so that it rides and looks much better as a uniform stretch. Mm-hmm. Okay. We strategically do that a year ahead if we can, sometimes the same year, but we want to make sure it holds up through the winter season if we can, and we're confident this one's fine.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions of Chris? If not, a motion's in order. Tony? Tony, can you turn your microphone on if it's not, or move it closer maybe?
It's on now. Page 2, the cost incurred by the requesting party for preliminary design or preliminary engineering, construction material testing, inspection, and right-of-way are excluded from the project costs in this. So those efforts are being performed by our in-house staff just out of the regular department budgeting?
That's correct. A year and a half ago, we ramped up our engineering team for this reason, because most of our grants do not allow for a reimbursement of those costs. And so by having our own in-house people, we generally save about 50% off of what consultants would charge for the same services. And we get excellent representation because the people live, work, and play in this community and really care about the product that we put down. So yeah, we have to cover that out of our general budget. We do charge it to the project. We account for all those costs through job costing in our accounting system, and we track it to make sure we're saving money and in line. And
Yes.
Team has an excellent track record.
Because I know your in-house staff can do it for less than contracting it out.
Yeah, we're between 50 and 60 an hour, but a consultant for the same inspection services, generally 90 to 110 per hour.
Yeah, and that clause applies on all 3 of these contracts that are...
Correct.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
One of the big rationales for having the engineering team that we do. We're saving a lot of money. It looks like big staff, we understand that, but strategically it's very smart for us.
Okay, if there's no additional questions, motion's in order. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Meridian and Bunker Hill Road contracts.
Ditto on the last one. Just a different project, but the same force account work. We need separate contracts for each one. So same situation.
Commissioners, any questions on this contract? If not, I'd like to forward it to the full board with a motion. Tony, you're not on the committee if that came from you. You're not on the committee if that support came from you. Correct? I thought I heard it down here. I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. See you sitting down to the right, so. Okay, so Tony has it, and all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Chris, Onondaga and Woodward roads repeat, just like the others, I assume?
Shortest item ever, yes.
Okay, if no questions from commissioners, another motion is in order to send it to the full board. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Takes us down to your monthly report, Chris.
Thank you. Well, our team has laid out, remember, this is always looking back to the month prior. So this is a summary of June. We try to include the latest possible information up to the submittal deadline for board docs for you. You know, some things not mentioned in here. The fairgrounds, Keeley Park is clearly a big priority for us right now. And the parking lot is getting material continued to be placed today. The asphalt will be going down next week, and that'll be the icing on the cake. So once that's down, it's pretty much substantially complete. A lot of the big building blocks, the base material and so forth is happening this week, and so it's going to come together really fast. I'd encourage you not to look. It's like watching sausage being made. Just trust that by next week you'll have a wonderful sausage, so to speak, to enjoy. It'll be done. I'm getting the look from Mike. We've got this. We've got this. We're daily coordinating with the contractor, and we are very happy with Hoffman. They've done exceptional work, and they're all in to make sure this happens. So,
Chris, Tony wants to interject a question, I think.
Sure.
Well, we've gone by the contracts, but we can go back, Tony, if you need to.
Not a question on your monthly report as presented. I got a question relative to our policy when I believe it was July 1, the Pope Church Road Bridge was closed, an emergency procedure. We discovered that it was unsafe and it was closed immediately, as it should have been. Same thing with the Hanover Road Bridge in Pulaski Township. On the day that the Pope Church Road Bridge was closed, I had a 4-H meeting, and one of the other parents there is a member of volunteer fire department. And he was telling me that on his way to the 4-H meeting that evening, he saw that the bridge was closed. He called his fire chief and said, "Do you know about this?" His fire chief said, "No, I didn't know about this." So some policy needs to be looked at or created. I think you guys took the right action in immediately closing these bridges when they were discovered to be unsafe. But the next step is, one of the next steps is, how do we notify, 911? Do we notify all of the individual fire departments, emergency medical responders? How do we get the word out? Because it didn't happen. But how do we improve the time frame for getting the word out to the local emergency response personnel that the bridge is out?
I'm sorry, just before the question is answered, just as a parliamentarian, and this is just because I don't know, but just more or less as a parliamentarian issue, if it's not on the agenda, can we discuss this? I know it's just a question.
Well, we're getting a report from Chris on road department activities, and I think this particular issue is one that Tony has brought up already to the administrator and Chris. And Tony, I think your points are well taken. I think probably the best format is to have a conversation first with Chris and Mike about it, and I would suggest we let Chris finish the report here. There is an area on the agenda 7, committee member comments. Certainly it could belong there, but again, I think that Tony has talked with at least Chris, if not Mike, and probably a better format is to have the conversation there first, and if we need to change a policy, we can bring it forward. But Tony, why don't you hold until 7 committee member comments? That certainly is a place where you can bring up such comments. So Chris, if you can proceed with your report.
Thank you. I really don't have much to add, but I'm happy to take questions. If you want to do that under item 7, that's fine.
So Chris, my first question is, of course it's in the report, so I'll ask about it, and it's in my district, but Stonegate went well, and that's all done, I assume?
Correct. I don't think it's 100% complete, but it's moved along nicely. Given the rains and all, we were very worried because some of the base material was here's what happens. We peel up asphalt, we mill, and we find problems. The roads were not built like they should have been long ago. So we have to stop and get quotes and put the base in like it should be. So we had that problem there. You know, our team is very cost conscientious, and so there was some confusion about what curbs should go and what shouldn't, and the initial, they had my support to replace anything with cracks and blemishes, but somehow through their cost conscientiousness they were trying to save as much of the curb as possible. So as you know, we had one constituent who raised a concern, and I personally drove through the whole subdivision and met with our project manager and just clarified that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fix the curbs that are settled and or damaged from snow plows or just cracked, and so we took those extra measures there.
So I do appreciate you taking care of that, Chris. It was one resident that had issues, and you quickly were on it with your staff and took care of it to their satisfaction, really, and the satisfaction of the neighborhood, I think. Phil.
Morning, Chris.
Morning.
Around Napoleon, the hot topic is Moon Lake Road Bridge. I see you put it in your report the wing wall or something has been finished. When will the bridge be open for traffic?
Very soon here. We're still working on details, but within about 2 to 3 weeks here, we expect it to be all wrapped up and done. We're still working on some of the aesthetic treatments, the coloration of the stone. It looks very bland right now, but there's actually a process for approving the colors to stain the concrete so it looks natural. So we're still working on some of that, but we could actually get it open to traffic before some of that work is completed.
So we're looking 3 weeks, is safe to say?
2 to 3, yeah. Okay. I would lean towards 3. I will get you an update here in the next few days. I was coordinating with the team on details last week. We're all doing our best. We can only push a contractor so hard. They were held up by rains, and every contractor we're working with is extremely busy. So just because our project maybe didn't get hit with rain, some of the other projects do, and they're under deadlines. So it's a process of negotiation to let them finish something else in exchange for expedited completion on ours. A lot of details there. But.
Okay. And I had a question for a constituent, and I told him I'd get him an answer. Hoyer Road is terrible. Is that on the list of roads that you will be fixing, or is that a township road where...
Is that the one you emailed about last week?
Yes.
That is a primary, and we did take a good look at that. It needs a lot of work. It's a good recycling candidate, actually. It's not currently on the radar, but I'll be coming forward here in the next month or so with a proposal for hitting some of our roads hard next year, and I think that's one we're going to add to the list.
I didn't even know if it was primary or not.
Yeah, it is. We verified that, so that's 100% on us.
Okay.
And we're looking at a program, an aggressive program to continue hitting some of those roads hard. So.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have an email response. I'll get to you on that. Okay, thanks.
Chris, the storage building at the road department, is that all done? Floors all poured in full use now or not?
No. Building's up. Structures are up. We're waiting on some door installations, and electrical quotes will be coming to you here in August. The slab work is probably the last item we plan to put in, especially since it's under protected roof now. There were some complications, to put it mildly, to just kind of make a long story short, with compaction. We're all about quality, and we wanted to make sure before the tops went on, we got a lot of rains, as you recall. So the interior became a large bathtub, and the water was kind of sitting in there. Things were soggy, so we needed to get the roof on, let that aggregate drain over time. We've even recompacted some of the areas around the foundation. We want to make sure that this concrete floor will last through the ages and stay strong, so we're taking a little extra time right now, to be honest with you.
Okay, so but this winter everything will be undercover.
It will be done.
Good.
Thy will be done, yes.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Steve?
Come on, engineering. Browns Lake, Engineering Bridge. Could you explain your...
Oh, yes.
Which page are you on, Steve?
Right after this.
Yeah, it's the white paver there with, as a photo. And you're right. We had to do an environmental scan, and we discovered that there were mussels there. So we hired a consultant to assist with the relocation of those. Basically, it's just our environmental stewardship, making sure that we follow all regulations and coordinate closely with DEQ and DNR. I think so. I'll have to verify that, though. Let me get back to you on it. Mm-hmm. I think this is shorter than 20 feet. You know, we have this issue of 20 feet and greater being a federal bridge, and that might be the one. That one's longer, isn't it? The one you're thinking of. This is a shorter structure, smaller. You could almost call them culverts, or, you know, it's like the Robbins Bridge that we did is shorter than 20 feet. But I'll verify that. I'll get that to you.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to claims, which I think have made their way all the way down. Tony, did you get the claims also? Okay. We'd be looking for a motion on those. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Other minutes and the August reporting schedule takes us back down to public comments. Brad, anything to say yet? No. Okay. Nobody else from the public? Committee member comments? Tony?
Just to continue my earlier comments, apologize for bringing it up earlier. I did not know whether Chris would be sticking around after his final report, so I asked it then because I wasn't sure he'd be here now. It's just a policy that needs to be looked at. If anything else, we need to maybe ask our manager to look into our various policies to make sure that when emergency road or bridge closures occur, that the emergency staff are notified promptly. The actions that were taken to close those bridges, I agree with. I got an email from a constituent, and I forwarded the comments to Chris. Very prompt, very good response from Chris and others. So went from within just a few hours from a irate resident. They managed to know what was going on. A couple hours later, we know the whole situation. And the residents weren't necessarily happy with it, but closing the bridge had to be done. So JDOT's response, I think, was excellent. So no complaint about what was done, just a concern for what should be the next step anytime one of these emergencies take place. So wherever that policy discussion needs to start, I believe it needs to start now.
If I may, I believe we have policy, and I believe we do all that. Maybe Christopher could elaborate on what you do when under such circumstances.
Absolutely. We have practice procedures that we follow, and I think what happened here is there's just crossing in the throes of a quick response action. We had called 911. We always notify dispatch right away as the signs are going up, or when we know we're going to be putting the signs up. So to be honest, our team is very responsive and frankly got ahead of me and got ahead of our public relations person who was traveling with family that day too. So we were talking about the press release and getting notification out. Meanwhile, the signs were already getting put up, which we needed to do. There was no doubt about that. I think it was Sunday before we finally got everything pieced together and got it out and made sure we had a clear understanding. The other piece of that whole thing was Robbins Road Bridge That new deck is in, thankfully, but we don't yet have the guardrails, and all the contractors are extremely busy. We have it going in now. We'll get that open to 2 lanes, but just getting it open to 1 lane was critical as well at the same time. So we had a lot of, it was a late night for me, working with the team, a late night for our team. I don't think they got in until 10 or 11 o'clock that night. Went right back out the next morning to finish with both of those bridges. We even weighed, could this wait till Monday? But that's on me. I said no. We have knowledge that this is a hazard, and we need to close it immediately upon discovery. So that was my decision.
Chris, I appreciate how proactive the road department is, and the fact that they were out there, I think, on a Saturday looking at the bridge, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And my experience with you and your staff is that you're always looking for ways to improve and do innovative things. And if things were a little behind on notification, I'm sure it's something that you'll improve on and correct. So I trust that that'll happen.
We're already having that discussion. Yeah, continuous process improvement, we call it. Yeah. So in my humble opinion, I don't know that a formal policy is necessary. I think our practice and our procedure just needs refined so that we have clear steps that we follow internally, and this shouldn't happen again.
Yeah, policy can't cover every single action that you take. What you practice really that needs to be adjusted maybe. Okay. Any other committee member comments? Hearing none, we are adjourned.